Have you ever wondered what the difference is between the Aztecs and the Mayans? Aren't they the same? Didn't they all live in Mexico? Didn't they build pyramids and perform human sacrifices? Well, yes and no, because while many people confuse them, these two civilizations were like Messi and Cristiano, similar in greatness but totally different in style. And what you're going to discover today will probably make sure you never mix them up again. So stick around until the end, because I promise you, difference number 7 will blow your mind. And no, this isn't clickbait. Difference number 1, where they lived. Let's start with the basics. Location. The Mayans lived further south. Their territory included what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, parts of Honduras, and El Salvador. The Aztecs, on the other hand, were in central Mexico. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, was located exactly where Mexico City stands today, built right in the middle of a lake. So now you know, if you're walking through the jungles of Yucatan, you're on Mayan land, but if you're stuck in traffic in Mexico City, you're on Aztec ground. Difference number 2, when they lived. Here's another common mix-up. Did they live at the same time? Nope. The Mayans were much older. Their civilization peaked between 250 and 900 AD, though they existed long before that and continued long afterward. The Aztecs arrived much later, around 1300, and their empire lasted until the Spanish arrived in 1521. So yes, when the Aztecs were reaching their peak, the Mayans had already been building temples and studying the stars for centuries. Difference number 3. How they were organized. The Mayans were more like a league of independent cities. Each city-state had its own ruler, its own army, its own calendar, kind of like a bunch of little kingdoms that didn't always get along. The Aztecs, in contrast, built a centralized empire. They had a supreme emperor, called the Tlatoani, who ruled over the entire Triple Alliance, Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan. Think of the Mayans as a family of cousins who barely talk to each other, and the Aztecs as a giant corporation with a CEO calling the shots. Hey, if you've made it this far, you must be enjoying the video, right? So why not give it a like? It costs you nothing and helps us out a ton. And if you're already subscribed, huge shout out to you. If not, what are you waiting for? Hit that button, drop a comment with your favorite fact so far, and share this with someone who thinks the Mayans invented tacos. Let's keep going. Difference number 4. Knowledge and writing. Here comes something most people don't know. The Mayans had an advanced writing system, one of the very few fully developed systems in pre-Columbian America. They used glyphs to represent syllables and whole words, and with that, they wrote books, records, calendars, even poetry. The Aztecs, on the other hand, used a simpler system based on pictograms, basically little drawings that represented ideas. It was more of a visual memory aid than a proper writing system. And guess what? The Mayans invented the number 0 centuries before Europeans did. Yes, the same 0 you use to say you have zero motivation to work today. They were literally centuries ahead. While Europe was burning witches, the Mayans were calculating planetary cycles. Difference number 5. Religion and sacrifice. Both cultures were deeply religious and believed in many gods, but here's a striking difference. The Aztecs were famous for their large-scale human sacrifices. They believed offering blood, especially from enemy warriors, was how they fed the sun and kept the world from ending. They literally thought the sun wouldn't rise unless they made sacrifices. The Mayans also practiced sacrifice, but not on the same scale. They often performed rituals using their own blood, piercing their tongues, ears, even their genitals to offer pain to the gods. So to sum it up, the Mayans suffered themselves, the Aztecs made others suffer. Or better said, the Mayans were into inner drama, the Aztecs into full-blown spectacle. Difference number 6. Architecture and cities. Both cultures built pyramids, but they were quite different. The Mayans built temples deep in the jungle. Sites like Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza look like something straight out of an adventure movie. Their pyramids usually had steep staircases, temples on top, and precise astronomical alignment. The Aztecs, on the other hand, built a massive city on a lake, Tenochtitlan. With canals, floating walkways, and over 200,000 residents, it was one of the largest cities in the world at the time, so advanced it left Spanish conquerors speechless. Picture it, a kind of pre-Hispanic Venice, filled with temples, markets, and floating gardens. That was the Aztec capital. One looks like Indiana Jones should be running through it. The other, Avatar Pre-Colonial Edition. Difference number 7. Their legacy, and here comes the one I told you about at the start, the difference most people don't know. Today, Mayan culture is still alive. Millions of people speak Mayan languages, practice traditional rituals, and maintain their worldview. You can meet living Mayans across southern Mexico and Central America. The Aztecs, sadly, were almost entirely wiped out by the Spanish conquest. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken, and many everyday words like chocolate, tomato, or avocado come from it. But as a civilization, the Aztecs disappeared quickly. You could say the Mayans survived while the Aztecs were erased. So yes, you can meet a Mayan today. An Aztec, closest you'll get is a museum. Difference number 8. Calendars and prophecies. Remember the famous 2012 doomsday prediction? That was Mayan. The Mayans were obsessed with time. They had multiple calendars running simultaneously and could predict eclipses, seasons, and astronomical events with mind-blowing precision. The Aztecs had calendars too, but not quite as sophisticated. They believed the world had already been destroyed several times and that we were living in the fifth sun, the final one. Fun fact, when the Spanish arrived, the Aztecs believed Hernán Cortés was a god returning as foretold by prophecy. Yeah, that didn't end well. Spoiler, he wasn't a god, just a bearded Spaniard. Difference number 9. Art and symbolism. Mayan art is rich in detail, glyphs, spiritual symbolism, scenes from the underworld. Their carvings and pottery tell full stories. Aztec art, on the other hand, is bold, aggressive. Giant sculptures, war symbols, skulls, and feathered serpents. The Mayans whisper through their art. The Aztecs, they shout. Both are stunning, but while one invites you to reflect, the other dares you to challenge it. Difference number 10. How it ended. The Mayans gradually faded. Many of their cities were abandoned for reasons still debated: droughts, internal wars, resource exhaustion, but no massive conquest. The Aztecs, meanwhile, fell in a dramatic showdown. In 1521, the Spanish teamed up with enemy tribes, besieged and conquered Tenochtitlan, and just like that, the entire empire collapsed. One went out mysteriously, the other with a bang. ConclusionSo. Do you still think the Mayans and the Aztecs were the same? Even though we often lump them together, they were very different. One lived in the jungle, the other on the water. One had city-states, the other an empire. One wrote books in glyphs, the other left pictograms. One gazed at the stars, the other fed the sun with blood and hearts. But both left behind an incredible legacy that still shapes our world today. Now tell me, which one impressed you the most? And hey, speaking of impressive things, did you hit the like button already? No, seriously, come on, it costs you nothing and means the world to us. And what about subscribing? Don't be shy, click that button. Comment the difference that blew your mind and share this with that one friend who still thinks the Mayans lived in Tenochtitlan. See you on our next journey through the past, explorers. Until next time.